this is the possible outcomes.
Well, we came here to meet with the public and talk about our proposal to delist the Hawaiian hawk, take it off the endangered species list, and to our plans rather for monitoring the hawk if we were to take it off the list. The purpose here, though, was simply to kind of get more information out to the public. We are reopening the public comment period, trying to get just as much community feedback and sharing of information as possible as we move through this process of making a decision whether or not to proceed with that delisting. It is a native hawk, and it's the only native hawk to the Hawaiian Islands, and it exists only on one island, the island of Hawaii. It did in a long time ago, prehistoric times, exist on other islands. It is also of cultural significance to people. It's an aumakua for many families, so it's a very special bird. It is now listed as endangered under the Endangered Species Act. The three possible scenarios that we're looking at right now are that we proceed along the lines of the process we've proposed, which is to remove the EO from the endangered species list. If we do so, we will finalize that, and it will be removed from that list. It will no longer be listed as endangered. Another scenario would be that we proceed along the lines and we withdraw that proposal based upon the comments we received and other information we received. It may not be warranted at this time, so we will withdraw that proposal. The third scenario is that we withdraw that proposal and then possibly move forward with a downlisting to what we call threatened status.
You know, to be listening to this kind of stuff and to see the flaw in this study, you know, this is really a desecration of what you guys are doing to the Hawaiians.
The delisting of the eel is critical, and I think it would be a great disservice, especially for the Hawaiian community and the island as a whole, for the eel hawk to be delisted from the endangered species, because there's a lot of factors involved in what can affect the hawk. Because of our olelo and the history that we have, you know, we believe that that the eel was a messenger that took our prayers to our ancestors, you know, up into the heavens, because, you know, they fly so high, and we believed at that time that from the ancients, that they were the messengers that took our message. And so from the religious aspect, it plays a very important role. The other aspect that came out tonight was that they haven't considered all of the environmental effects that's going on here on the island, such as the fog and the eruption that's going on down in Kalapana as well as in Kilauea, and the heavy effect that it's doing, and it's killing off a huge amount of forest. And so the eel is part of that forest and what the effect is, and the scientists haven't even made any studies in regards to that. And so when they talk about the delisting, it's really difficult for us to say take that off the endangered species list.
But we will have to do the monitoring. There is no ifs, ands, or buts, and we will take the money. There's many reasons for looking into delisting, because we as the Fish and Wildlife Service were mandated by Congress not only to list species, but also to recover them. And when we have recovered them, or not we by ourselves, but when they are recovered, we're mandated to remove them from the list. So we began this process with the EO back in 1993, actually. However, in the course of our very long process, we did also receive a petition, and that was received in 1997 from the National Wilderness Institute.
There's suspect to that. You know, why the delisting of the Hawaiian hawk, of which these guys don't even live here, but yet they filed an application with U.S. Forestry and Wildlife Service to delist the eel hawk. And so we're also suspect as to why they're doing that. What is the connection? We asked the scientists tonight, you know, in this meeting. They didn't have an answer on this. You know, what is the connection? So the motivation to delist has, there's a huge hidden agenda that we don't know about. Well, the numbers that they were tallying was speculative, and they have a formula that they believe are the number of eel that's in existence. There's no actual physical sighting of the eel that they were able to come up with in order to come up with these numbers. And so there is suspect on the current numbers that they say is here in Hawaii. The other problem that we have is that it did not allow for all of the other islands to be considered in this the study that they put together, because the eel was native on all islands. Okay, and so all the other islands, according to the scientists, is that the eel is extinct on the other islands, and we're saying, okay, then that should be made part of the study, because the eel had homes on all the islands, and so it's not just Hawaii Island that should be looked at in terms of what happened to the eel population. And just because they're looking and targeting Hawaii Island, the numbers look to be inflated, when in fact, if they do it for studying Maui, Oahu, Lanai, Kauai, the numbers are no longer inflated. It's a real small amount of numbers.
I think your number's wrong.
Yeah.
I think your numbers are high. I don't appreciate those numbers because I think those numbers are bogus.
But the numbers are good. People went out and they counted birds in the same places before and after.
Because
but the change that the bird population is undergoing is probably pretty slow, and it's going in one direction or another, and we're going to have to see where it goes. This isn't predictive science. This is just telling you what happened in 1 year and what happened 10 years later.
The studies that they're doing is really flawed, and I'm very concerned. And the numbers that they're doing, the things that they're coming up with to tell us why they're going to delist it, I'm afraid that is, from what we've seen tonight, it's a done deal.
We look at very specific criteria under the Endangered Species Act, and they're called the 5 factors analysis. We went over those tonight, and that's what we look at. It deals with the different types of threats that we need to look into to see whether or not they're negatively impacting a species such as the EO to such an extent that they are considered endangered of extinction or could become so in the foreseeable future.
we're not saying it. What we're saying is that we're going to file a contested case. Because everything you're showing us is telling us how you're going to delist it.
It's a proposal.
Well, it doesn't look good.
Okay.
It doesn't favor the EO. It doesn't. Everything you showed up here is telling us why you're going to delist it. And so we will prepare. And so we need to know from you, what is the process so that we can stop you? Because we will stop you.
It's important, that the eel, to have kids see the eel and how excited that they get whenever they see the pu'eo, how excited they get. But, can you imagine what if this thing never existed, the eel went extinct, and, our children's children can never, all they can see the eel is through pictures. That would be a huge, huge loss for us here in the islands.